Welcome, everyone, to the Divinity podcast, episode 30. On this episode, we take a look back at everything that happened during the week 1 of the Spring Split of Season 5, the SPL. And yeah, my name is the Robbie Dog. I'm joined today by Sabo, as always. And we're trying a bit of a different format today as well, just to say that up front. And so we're just going to quickly review all of the games that happened this week, and then we'll just head straight into topics that we actually want to discuss, more so than the individual games themselves. So, yeah. First thing that happened this week, the first matches were obviously on Tuesday. We started off with the EU matches, and there we saw 2 best-of-3 sets. In the first one, Rival got a win against Energy. Both teams looked fairly convincing within that set. Rival managed to win out 2-1 over Energy. And then we had the battle of the teams that we expect to be at the bottom of the EU SPL, the split between Mouse and SK, and where Mouse actually managed to win it, which is a bit unlike what we were actually expecting as well.
And moving to Wednesday, we actually got to see the champs in action. They didn't look like the champs, as LG Weekend and the boys upset the champs in a 2-0 victory over them. With Oceans in for Clout or Vedium, if you've watched the SPL before. Vedium, Oceans is the sub/coach. Oceans popped off, and yeah, the champs struggled. E United lose back-to-back games for the first time in almost 6 months, I believe. And then in set number 2, we had CLG with a victory over Splice. Snoopy and the boys looked good here. Nothing really to talk about. No surprises. I will say that I was wrong about Cyclone Spin. Didn't really take him that long to get into the flow of things. Splice looks like a good team going forward. It's just CLG looked better in this set.
Yeah, and then on Thursday we had another 3 sets on the EU side. All of them actually ended 2-0, which was very quick. Made the E-Ring go a bit quicker than expected, maybe. And first we saw Dignitas finding a 2-0 over Mouse, which still looked decent within that 2-0, right? That's kind of the result you were expecting going in, probably. But Mouse managed to put up a fight, at least. Then we found Rival actually finding a dominant 2-0 over Obey, where they just looked very good, and Obey looked very flat, and Obey's flat form kind of continued on into the next best-of-3 they played against Dignitas, where they also got 2-0'd. So Obey actually started off the season with a 0-4 record, which is extremely bad for them.
And that brings us to yesterday, the final day of week 1. We saw Counter Logic Gaming versus Trifecta in match number 1. CLG is able to hold off a very good-looking Trifecta team. Scary D looked really good, looked like he did at the beginning of Season 4, where he was so dominant. But again, Snoopy and the boys were able to fend off Trifecta in a set that went all 3 games, and it was a very entertaining game. But again, Snoopy found the win, taking us to the next match, where we believe would be the top teams of NA. Space Station, that's Anister and Baskin and the boys, Jeff and Barra, hand E United their second straight 2-0 loss. Very surprising set. Game 1 was entertaining. Game 2 was just a stop. And Anister went off. Anister back in the jungle. It didn't take him very long to get into the swing of things. It took him maybe 45 minutes. So I was wrong about the 2-week thing. 45 minutes is all it took Andy to get into the swing of things. And E United just happened to feel the wrath of one of the best junglers of all time. Going into set number 3 of the day, where Space Station plays again, they've actually able to hold off Trifecta, much like Counter Logic Gaming did earlier in the day. In game 3 of the set, though, was very close, very entertaining. Again, Anister, not much to say. Yeah, Scary D, very good day from Scary D. He looks really good so far into the set, but they just couldn't overcome Anister and Baskin. So SSG starts off with a convincing 4-0, or not 4-0, but 2 set victories.
And yeah, I think, like, considering just how good of a team they are in general, that is what you would have expected if one of the teams they ran into wasn't the wasn't United, obviously, right? Them finding a 2-0 over United is a massive feat for basically any team, and including for them as well. So yeah.
I think people could have people would have understood if Space Station had beaten E United, and Space Station finding the set victory because they're the top two teams in North America. What's the more concerning part is that LG, the team that both you and I picked to be at the bottom, actually beat the champs, and so E United is started off 0-2 because it's set victories now. It's not just individual game victories. So when you said Obey starts off 0-4, Obey actually started off 0-2 because they lost both of their sets.
Yeah, it's the same story for both of them, kind of, because both also got 2-0'd in their sets, right? Which is why it's an even bigger upset, arguably, and especially in the case of United, it's an even bigger upset, right? You could have said that you were expecting Obey to lose both sets in this first week. That would have been a reasonable prediction, right? I think predicting United to lose against LG and to lose against LG 0-2, no one would have guessed that, right?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think most people would have understood if Obey had started off 0-2 after giving their opponents are the top two teams in Europe in both Rival and Dignitas. E United, you expected to come out in 2-0 LG and probably beat Space Station as well because they were just so dominant in the fall split and their Worlds run that you didn't really expect this to happen. I think most people would have understood if they finished the week 1-1 because Space Station was again considered one of the top teams in North America. It was LG that everybody is going to look at as the surprise. But credit where credit's due, Weekend and Oceans looked awesome in that set, and Oceans popped off. Panda Cat struggled. The not Gino with the Athena support in that game one. There were multiple occasions where he hit 3 to 4 players with a taunt into Soul ult and a Kraken from what's his name, Keeg's mate. Yeah, so LG played good. The champs didn't look like the champs. It's a bit surprising, but credit where it's due. LG played out of their minds.
Yeah, definitely right. That's not what we're trying to do when we say that United played below their normal form or below their World Championship form, right? It's a combination of both, right? It's a combination of United stepping down pretty massively and LG performing way above expectations, and for the latter, they definitely deserve a lot of props. And especially Weekend came out this week, proved a lot of haters wrong. And yeah, respect to him, man. Like, I think there's a ton of people who criticize Weekend, and a lot of it is very deserved. This week, it did not look like he deserved any of that criticism, because this week he just came out to play.
That's very much the case with Weekend. Everybody seems to criticize the man, but he's one of the most popular streamers that Smite has, right? And he knows how to market himself. So him being on LG, that's a win for LG, even though the team, could be considered not very good. E United, however, I don't want to push the panic button quite yet because it's only week 1 of the season. They got 8 months until they need to really turn it on at Super Regionals. But it's a little concerning right now for the champs to be 0-2, especially if they're looking to make a run in the spring and get to the Spring Masters.
Yeah, I think that's the worrying thing. The good thing is obviously we have a double round robin system now, which means it should be fairly easy for teams who take a lot of losses in 1 week to come back in the next couple of weeks and try to sort of reverse that scoreline that they have. And yeah, if any team's going to be able to do it, right, it's going to be a team with as many talented players on it as E United, and which is obviously as good at playing together as well as E United, because they still did win the World Championship just a couple months ago, right? That's nothing you can take away from them. And if they find anywhere close to that form again, then they can still get themselves to land fairly easily.
Again, it's week one. Don't push the panic button on the World Championship. Energy last year, okay, they weren't that. Their results weren't the same as the previous 2 years for Energy, but Energy was historically a team that gets off to a slow start when a new season starts. And so could just be the same situation for E United. This could be a filler week to just see how the map plays out and see what strategies do and do not work. And I expect going forward that E United is going to be just fine.
Yeah, and I think something that can also play a role is that when you come into a season, right, I think it's a similar thing to what happened to Energy last season. You just come into a new season after having won the World Championship, after being pretty clearly the best team in the world at this very moment, and you have nothing to prove. The hunger is kind of gone because you did everything you wanted to, and now that you're in a new season where other teams still have the same goal that you just achieved, right, to win the World Championship, this time in Season 5, and you have already done it, you're just going to be less hungry naturally. And I think that's what plays a role as well, because I think when you saw them play, they looked less hungry, right? In some regard.
Be often the case when teams win championships. They come in, start the next season a little with their foot off the gas because they've already won a championship. They're just God knows what they're doing, but it's much harder to defend your world championship than it is to actually go and win one world championship, because you lose that drive that it takes to win a championship because you already have one. And so if that drive's not there, it's going to be a long season for E United, but I expect that that's not the case. Polar Bear Mike is not going to allow this team to just settle for one championship. They're going to want to win multiple championships. And yes, the drive, the hunger doesn't look like it's there right now, but I do not expect to be missing for very long with this team.
Yeah, I think that's the good thing here for them, is that even if they suck during the entirety of the season, right, you have an entire year until the next World Championship. And in that year, you can easily regain that hunger.
Exactly. They might finish at the bottom in the spring. They might finish at the bottom in the summer, and they might barely make it to Super Regionals this year. But we know, we've seen in the past what these 5 players can do. They can turn it on at any moment if they.
Oh, you cut out. Is he still here? Yeah, I think what he was trying to say is that Energy, not Energy, obviously, instead E United can definitely turn it on. Like we've seen, right? The World Championship is proof that they can turn it on to an extremely high level. And that's basically all they have to do to become a good team again in Season 5. And yeah. I think they will do. I'm not sure how long it's going to take for them to regain that hunger, right? Because if you ask me, that's the big issue they have right now. It's nothing to do with the individual form, maybe a tiny bit in regards to Panda Cat. And it's all to do with the hunger that the team is really lacking right now. And that seems to be hurting them quite a lot. And it's understandable. It has to be rebuilt, like I said, and PBM, if someone's going to do it, it's probably going to be him, because he's been on teams before that have been on the losing side a lot and has managed to sort of turn things around, and he's even shaped this United roster into a working unit that was able to win the World Championship after all. So I'm expecting him to be able to easily rebuild that thing. Oh, Sabo, are you back?
Yeah, just a minor interruption in my connection there. It's storming here right now, so.
yeah, I said some stuff about United about how they're gonna get their form back, maybe, and how long it's gonna take.
I feel like this team revolves around Benji's pressure in the solo lane, and that the guys they picked this week, with the exception of RDO, doesn't really give him the ability to put that pressure and get something started. Multiple times they put him on Cerberus. Cerberus is probably the most overrated god in the game right now, especially from a pro league standpoint. Because I think he maybe won 2 games the entire weekend after being picked up about 50 times. Like he's a terrible win loss ratio this week. So getting him off a low pressure, calling again, or Hercules, I think he's going to be the one that everybody's going to look at when Achilles becomes available for pro league play. Putting him on some gods he can get early pressure on and use that pressure to put the rest of his teammates ahead, because the enemy team has to deal with him. That is where I think E United is going to finally start getting back to form.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Absolutely, a lot of what United does relies on Benji sort of getting fed and just being a massive frontline. Like, that's what we saw at Worlds, right? The one game they lost at Worlds was due to Benji getting shut down and due to Deathwalker managing to be a stronger frontliner than him in that one game. And the one other game that was close at Worlds for E United was because the same thing happened, right? Benji didn't get off to a massive start over Deathwalker. They were both doing their stuff until Rival obviously threw that game away. So, yeah, Benji's a massive deal, massive part of what United does.
And what was it that F. Dot used to say? Give the player the tools to do his job. Benji on Cerberus, not my favorite thing, because Cerberus, give him a god with multiple forms of CC, right? Like, Cerberus has one reliable form of CC, and that's on his ult. His stun, the stun that you have to connect on all 4 parts of his one, is very hard to get. And so have the one form of CC, and if you don't pair Cerberus with somebody like a Dodgy who can burn beads, or a Humbats who can burn beads for him, Cerberus has an ult that's just not there. Looking at other things that Cerberus is struggling with and why people continue to pick him up, I'm not sure. His only healing in his kit is on his leap. So if he wants to heal, he has to be aggressive and leap into the enemy. If he wants to try to get away, he has to use his leap to get away and not heal. So it's big body. Cerberus has one of the biggest bodies, one of the biggest hitboxes in the game. I think he's only second to Kepre. Kepre, I believe Kepre's still the biggest hitbox that we have, but not very fast, because Guardians aren't like the fastest ones in the world. Unreliable CC, and he's huge. He's easy to hit. So yeah, that's Benji on that sort of god. I don't like it. I'm going to give him somebody who, like I said, pushes people around. To call in Hercules tier. Amaterasu, he loves Amaterasu. That's one of his best gods. Achilles is going to be another god that he's going to be really good at. RDO is fine. I'm fine with RDO. Just give him somebody who he can be that monster pressure on.
I've got a quick question about Cerberus. I'm not sure if you know how exactly his passive works, because his passive's also something that gives him healing, right? He gets 40% of the heal of the other god that he's facing in lane, right?
Yeah, that's true. He does have some healing on his passive ability, but the only time, only real healer we saw him against was Terra this weekend. And, the other healers in the game just didn't make an appearance.
We saw him against Hell, actually.
Zelia played Hell. Yeah, we saw Zelia play Hell.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the other healers didn't make it into the.
Yeah. He cut out again. But yeah, that's certainly. I think as a pick against healers specifically, he can still be very valuable. The issue is we're not really in a healer meta all that much right now, right? We have the occasional Sylvanas support, we have the occasional Terra in support or solo. Outside of it, we don't have the sort of dedicated healers, except obviously Rival's also just going to be playing the Ra and Wolfie. But that's Rival stuff, and well, he's kind of a healer, but he's also just canon, mostly. So, yeah. But yeah, I think that's part of the issue as well, why he didn't look as good this week as he might have against different team compositions. And there's something to be said about the value of forcing people off the healers inherently, because you don't want to give the Cerberus that much healing, right? But it's not that massive of an effect. Right, a lot of healing is going to be done out of his range anyway, out of his passive range anyway. And a lot of the healing's going to be way too spread out between different people for him to...
Okay, we're trying something else right now because my internet is just unreliable, so I'm speaking on my phone. Let me know if it's too hard for you.
Well, I'm probably going to have to turn you down a tiny bit because you're a bit too loud. But yeah.
That's fine with me.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was just saying, Serb healing against healers, he's probably a good pick, right? A lot better than he normally is, but we're kind of not in a healer meta because we're only really seeing Sylvanas supports and maybe and Terra solos or supports. Really, outside of that, there's not too many healers being played. And that kind of reduces the value of Cerberus as well.
Yeah, he doesn't. Terra and Sylvanas are not huge healing, huge sources of healing. So that passive that Cerberus has is not effective against those two healers. And those were the only, with the one game exception of Hale, was the only healers that we saw in the matches this week. And so that 40% healing from other sources, if any healing is taking place around Cerberus, he's getting that 40%, but he's not. Okay, you get a tick, you get some ticks and some more ticks from Sylvanas and Terra. You're getting maybe like 4 health because the healing only ticks for like the healing only ticks on both of those for like around 20, 25, 25 health. So you're only getting like 4 health back every time somebody heals near you. That's just not a lot when you take into account that, to get that passive, you have to put yourself in a really precarious situation and take all that damage. Like, that's not going to help you at all.
Yeah, that's the other thing, right? The range on the passive is pretty short. You have to get really close to someone to actually reduce their healing and profit from it yourself. And a lot of the healing's just going to be happening outside of that range, because when do teams generally heal? When they forced an engagement, pulled back, and are healing up for the next engagement. And that's done outside of that 40-unit range, and Serb's passive kind of does nothing in that regard. But yeah.
Yeah, having to put yourself out of position just to get that passive in effect is not the most ideal situation, and that's why we saw him struggle this weekend, and the fact that I think that he's overrated from a pro league standpoint. I think he's pretty good in the mid echelons of rank, but for a pro league team that understands that you have to be that close to get the healing, and people are just going to turn on you and burn you down. Like, that's not a passive that I want, really.
Yeah, there's certainly a ton of passives that are more powerful than the Serb one. Like, that's basically without question. But yeah. Yeah, I think part of the issue, to maybe go back to the United stuff, with United is definitely that they've been putting Benji on gods that aren't fitting for him. And that's all there really is to say, right? I think part of the solution is going to be that, and I think other part of the solution is going to be that they just need to regain their hunger. That's all I really have to say about United right now, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know if there's much else to say. They have to put Benji on a guard that he can push people around with, and I think all of NA needs to start banning out Soul, because Soul seems to be the issue for a lot of the NA teams right now. So
yeah. And yeah, other topics that are interesting to discuss, right? Obviously, we had Rival, who had a very good start into the week, into the season so far. They obviously got 2 wins, one against Energy with 2-1, one against Obey with that 2-0. And that is really good for Rival when we consider how much they've historically struggled in online play, right?
Right, Rival getting off to a good start in the split. That's it's not on land, so there's improvement there from this team that we, historically think of, being better on lands than they were online. But having a victory over Mouse Sports on Tuesday and then 2-0ing Obey on Thursday, I think is a good sign and a good start for the runners up at Worlds this year.
Quick correction. They won against Energy on Tuesday.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Mouse beat SK. My bad.
Yeah, so even if you look at the teams that they faced, right, those are both teams we expect to be definitely in that top 4 in EU, and beating both of them is pretty impressive itself as well.
But all things considered, again, it's week 1. Not a whole lot to look into this week. The teams that played well are teams that we expected to play well, and really the teams that struggled surprised us to a certain point when it comes to the World Champs. But Energy and Obey, I think, are going to be all right going further into the split, and then as the season goes along. I want to see Rival keep this kind of performance over entire season instead of just making it on lands. They need to do it online as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm excited for now.
Keep this performance up. Keep these online performances up, and we will, we'll see where you're at in 8 months when you can actually play online and be a great team in both scenarios.
Yeah, that would absolutely be great for Rival, obviously. And yeah, outside of that, in EU, what we obviously had, we've already hinted at it a bit, at how Obey just looked very flat, right? They didn't really look like they could put anything together in their games against Rival and Dignitas. They had one good game against Dignitas, right? The second one, I think, was fairly close.
I think it's more that Ataraxia struggled for the most part this week. He didn't look like himself. So his struggles with the new meta change, we saw multiple warriors in especially in that set against Rival. We saw multiple warriors in that support role, and so I think Ataraxia struggle with the new start to the new meta, the getting used to the new map and how everything works on the new map. I expect Obey to get better and be fine as they go along. It's a rough week 1 for some teams, and again, week 1 does not necessarily make an entire season. Let's see where Obey is at come fall, and see if they're better at fall or if they've actually fallen off a cliff and are 6th place in Europe.
Yeah. Well, just because they lost 2-0 to those two teams, right, Rival and Dignitas, which we are expecting to be at the top of the rankings, basically, doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be in 6th place.
Nothing to hang your head at when you lose to Rival and Dignitas. We said Dignitas has something, they're coming into this season with something to prove after how last season ended. And of course, Rival second place at Worlds, number one team in Europe during the fall split. Nothing to be ashamed of if you're Obey. I think the more worrisome part is over the last 7 games, 3 against E United and then the 4 against Dignitas and Rival. They're 0-7.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But again, 0-7 against those 3 teams is not something you should be ashamed of. They're 3 of the best teams in the world, and in a lot of cases are, in most people's eyes, are contenders for a Season 5 World Championship as well.
Yeah.
A lot of adjustments are going to be made throughout the course of the season for every team, and so week 1 is just a preview of how the meta is going to shift, how the meta is going to shape up, which roles are going to be more important than other roles, and all that good stuff. Because during the fall of last season, solo laners kind of ruled the world, and Benji and Deathwalker were the 2 best solo laners in the world, and so their teams made it to finals. It's looking like a jungler-driven league this year, and so some of the best junglers adapting: Captain Twig, Scream, Anister,
Cubo Fred.
I think Cubo Fred. Yeah, Cubo Fred as well. I think their teams are going to be just fine because they all have that amazing jungler on their teams. And so it's a jungler-driven league, at least through the first week. And I think with those teams and those junglers, if it still is a jungler-driven league come the fall, I think this is going to be we're going to have a lot of interesting teams in 8 months at Super Regionals.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I think one of the big talking points about both Obey and Energy, obviously going into the season, was the support swap between the both of them. Right now, right, considering Energy had a decent set against Rival, and Obey really struggled against Rival and Dignitas, obviously. It's looking like it's working out better for Energy so far, which is kind of contrary to what we were initially predicting to happen, right? Because we said that we thought Rival Raffer would be a bit more plug and play than Emilsi, and Emilsi would have to restructure Energy a bit.
That was kind of what, before we knew what the schedule for week 1 was going to be. We didn't know at the time that Obey was going to have both Dignitas and Rival to play in that first week. So I think this is a little too early to be claiming that we were wrong there. I think we should let this play out a little bit further before we make any kind of judgments on whether or not we were wrong about that switch.
Yeah, I think the only statement you can make is that individually, Emilsi did look better so far, but that's not necessarily a case of just the team, of him just fitting the team better, right? It could also just be that he was better individually this one week, and it's not going to matter in the following ones. But it's something that I want to see how it works moving forward, right? If Raffer's going to become better within the Obey roster as time goes on, which just is what I'm expecting, right? And if Emilsi can still get something more out of this Energy roster. Did I just say Raffer going to become better on the Energy roster? I think I might have.
I'll forgive you for that.
Yeah, well, he's been there for a while. Not anymore.
You get a pass.
Yeah. Obviously, Raffer getting better on the Obey roster, and whether Emilsi is going to be able to make this Energy roster even better himself, right? That's the kind of progression that I think is going to be very interesting during the Spring Splits, especially to see how both of these teams change due to the support swap. So, yeah. What else was there in NA to discuss?
I mean, as far as NA goes, I mean, there's not, other than E United not being at form and Anister really recapturing his form from a year ago. There's not a lot to talk about. Scary D. I did mention Scary D when we was going over the review, and F-Dot said it last night during the Trifecta Space Station cast when Scary D was really looking good in the solo lane that, a lot of the teams knew how good he was, and it was just him translating his talent to a professional level where we, as fans get to see actually how good he was. The thing that I'm concerned about going forward as far as Scary D is concerned is we saw this at the beginning of last season too, right? Him just being dominant in the solo lane and looking good for the first week or two and then falling off. A lot like I want to see, Rival, make an online split actually a good online split and not just doing it at lands. I want to see Scary D extend this out to an entire season and not just that 2-week period. Because at the beginning of season 4, coming off that season 3 Worlds performance he had, I was looking at him as probably one of the best solo laners in the world, and then he just had a drastic fall off after that second week. Do it for longer than 2 weeks before I give you, before I start saying you're one of the best solo laners in the world. Because we've seen it out of you before, but you haven't really made it. You haven't extended that type of performance.
Yeah, I think with Scary, you kind of have to wait and see how he performs over an entire season, because he's shown to be inconsistent and he's shown to have massive swings in form, more so than other players generally tend to do, and that is something to look forward to as well. I think the other thing you can say about the NA side was that both CLG and SSG coming in looked about as good as you would have expected, outside of Aninster looking much better than you would have expected. But those two teams are going to be interesting to keep watching as well, right? They're in a similar situation as Obey and Energy, really, where they're both kind of within this top group of teams within their region, and within that, they're gonna have to basically fight among each other, and that's a duel I'm looking forward to. I'm not sure actually in which week we're gonna get that matchup. Oh, next week. Great. So yeah,
week 2, week 3. I think it might be week 3 that they first match up against. I'd have to take a look at
week 2. It's week 2 on the 28th of March.
So that would be this Wednesday.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's gonna be an interesting matchup to see.
Yes, I think the more interesting point is if E United is not back to form and not back at top of North America, are these the two teams that are going to be fighting for that number 1 spot come the spring land time? And after their performances this week, I think so. I would also put Trifecta and Splice in there as well, because I was pleasantly surprised with Splice, and surprised with Splice. Say that like 12 times and see if that worked out for you. But I think right now, with how the game is shaping up, with the assassins being the junglers being the go buttons, the catalyst for each of the teams, I think Homie Faye and Anister, for these two teams, driving them, I think that's going to be an interesting match to watch as the split goes forward, and see which team actually finishes on top of North America at number 1 if E United can't get back to form.
Yeah, that's a bit of a difference to the EU side, obviously, right? Because on the EU side, the two teams you're looking at kind of, or I guess there's 2 pairings of teams there. There's Rival and Dignitas, who have yet to face each other, and then there's Energy and Obey. And Energy and Obey, they're behind, right? They're third and fourth right now, from what it's looking like. So that's where the difference between them and the CLG SSG pair kind of is, assuming that EU United doesn't find their form quickly enough. But yeah.
And again, I think any team with a great jungler like Adapting and Captain Twig are going to be fine as the season plays out. It's just right now you're looking up, especially in Europe, you're looking at Dignitas and Rival, and which of these two teams, which is Energy or Obey, going to grab that number 3 spot. And I think the better team overall, in most people's opinion, is probably Obey, but you can't count out somebody like Adapting being one of the best players in the world, and with Assassins being back and the jungler being the top of the team right now. I think this meta is really shaping up to be an Adapting meta, and that's why we see players like Homie Faye and Anister, come back and perform so well in week 1 because it's that kind of meta, and the Assassins are running the show in the jungle right now. And as far as like Scream goes, as far as Scream on E United goes, I think Scream played well at least in game 1 of both sets, because game 2 was in both sets were kind of like stomps, and E United just didn't want to play game 2 for some reason. But in the games that were competitive, I think Scream played really well. I just think it was no pressure from the solo lane that we're used to seeing, and how E United thrives off Benji having that much of pressure in that lane. And again, Ocean's popping off and Panda Cat struggling this week. LG was able to 2-0 them, though it wasn't really Scream. Scream game 1 against SSG, he went like 48, 50 minutes before he died. He was like 4-0-11, and he was playing out of his mind. It was just that the rest of the team was struggling. And so as the rest of the team, or the rest of E United kind of shapes back up and Scream continues to play well in an assassin-driven league, I think the top of North America is pretty clear right now. But you don't count out guys like Mask and Sino. The league is competitive. Like it's more competitive than it has ever been, in my opinion. And that's because we're down to 6 teams in both regions, and the top players are the only players in the league. Like, you're not getting somebody like what's his name? I can't even think of his name, but I know his face. Oh man. Screw it. I'll just move on. Yeah, you're not getting the players that don't belong in the league. You're getting the best players in their roles.
Wait, which role were you thinking about?
The jungler. What's his name?
EU or NA?
NA. He's not in the league anymore. He's the dirty bubble. What do you go by? Mirage. Yeah, you're not getting a Mirage in the league anymore.
Yeah. Still have
Weekend. You have the best. You have the best of the best, and we saw what Weekend was able to do.
Yeah.
I think Weekend played better than a lot of people expected him to, but when you put Kiki on a Terra, and Terra's just going to sit under the tower, which I think is what frustrated Benji so much this weekend, because he can't push Terra around if Terra doesn't come out of her tower, and it's pretty safe for Terra to clear under tower. And you got Weekend on Arachne of all people, who the way Arachne works, she's a burst assassin in the mid game. Like, she's extremely powerful in the mid game, and so she gets to that mid game early. There's no stopping her. So a lot of healing out of fucking Terra, and then pairing Weekend and not taking the soul away from Oceans after Oceans destroyed you in game 1. Yeah, like I think they were thinking that Gino and Athena was the problem, so they drafted Athena away from Gino, but they still gave soul to Oceans, and Oceans just again destroyed them. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, NA just needs to ban out. Oh, NA just needs to ban out Seoul because Seoul pretty much won every game she was played in this weekend.
See, I don't think EU is having that much of an issue with Seoul. Weirdly enough.
Was Seoul picked a lot this weekend in EU though?
A couple times, I think. Let me check. Right, so once.
She was pretty much picked up in every game for North America this weekend, especially Friday. Like last night, I know Snoopy played her like twice in the first set, and then did Barracuda play her at all last night?
Pretty sure he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me check.
And then again, she was a role, in the games that Trifecta were able to win yesterday, and especially in that game 2 against Space Station where they paired her up with Ho Yi in the mid lane. Yeah, she's NA just is not having a good time facing Seoul, so she needs to be banned, and so that's where a lot of the teams that lost this weekend in NA were because they was facing a Seoul. So yeah,
I think it might be something they have to look towards banning, honestly. But see, what I think is weird is that EU is not even drafting her. She's not getting banned or picked in EU for the most part. She was picked once. If my eyes are still working, she was picked once in EU. And pretty sure she lost that game. Let me check. Man, this is terrible. Yeah, she won that game. Okay, so she has a 100% win rate in EU. At least that's something. But she's not prioritized at all.
And she's heavily prioritized in North America, and I think she lost 2 games a weekend.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm not getting, though. What I wonder is, does EU have a solution to her, which is why she's not getting picked, or are they just criminally undervaluing her?
I think it might be the second one. I think they're undervaluing her because the new Hunter's Blessing with her passive, it's very strong early game. And so, where most of the magical ADCs struggled were that early game. It was always their late game power and their tower shred. It wasn't necessarily their 1v1s in the past. And I think with the item changes and the Hunter's Blessing adding attack speed and basic attack damage with her passive of every time you hit a basic attack, she gets faster and more powerful. EU might be valuing her right now.
Yeah, I want to see if she gets picked more in coming weeks on the EU side. Just due to how good she's looking on the NA side. So,
I mean, historically, the problems with magical ADCs were their early games where they weren't very powerful.
Yeah, but that's never been Seoul's issue.
Yeah. She's even more powerful now in the early game. And her tire shred late game is still incredible. And you pair that up with another Hunter in mid lane, like most of the NA seems to be doing right now, you get that double Hunter feel that Elevate had at the end of the fall split last year, where the tire shred is just incredible.
Yeah.
So.
No, but see, what I think is the case, though. I don't think it makes even sense to say that generally magical ADCs are anything or do anything because there's only like 3 of them, right? There's Kronos, Sol, and Freya. And Kronos and Freya, they are both extremely late game focused, right? There's no denying that. Sol has never been late game focused. Sol has always been an early game monster. Right, when she came out, she was literally known for taking your tower within a minute, if you played it well.
Yeah, and then some item changes and adjustments in her power base scaled her back to more of a mid-game focus. And so she lost a lot of that early pressure that she was known for in her early days. With Hunter's Blessing adding basic attack damage and attack speed off the bat, and then getting more powerful as you evolve it, with the way her passive works, it's insane right now.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I'm not questioning that. I'm just saying that Saul's always been good in the game. Always been good early game, kind of. But yeah.
Well, again, she kind of took a hit.
Yeah.
When she lost her Fatalis effect at the beginning of season 4 with some item changes and changes to her power, the power she gets in her on her passive, that's what shifted her from the early game to that mid to late game where you're wanting the mages, where you wanted to play her in mid because it took her a little bit more time to get to her power spike, and it wasn't just an early game power spike, which was why she was so heavily favored at the end of season 2 in the ADC role. She made a shift to the mid role with some power changes, and now that Hunter's Blessing is in the game, that's why we see her start being played in the ADC role more and more.
Yeah, and I think another reason for that is because Hunters aren't that good mid game right now, right? They're good early game, and they're good late game. Obviously, that's the strong points for Hunters. But it really seems like mid game they're kind of weak right now. And if Saul's having a massively better mid game, and most games are decided in the mid game, then it makes a ton of sense to play Saul instead of the other Hunters, obviously.
Yeah, and that's why we see, at least in North America, we saw AMC and Hoagie and Uller all played in the mid lane, with Soul being in that ADC role. We saw how the game is shaping up right now, with Hunters being powerful in the early game. They have that mid lane clear that makes them good. They struggle in the mid game, but that's when the 3v3, is around. So there's a lot of damage from the other sources. And then they're really powerful in the late game where they need to be. So putting the Hunter in the mid lane and having the Hunter rotate around in the mid game where they're not as powerful, but they kind of make up for that lack of power with other players being around them. That's why we see right now Hunters being played more and more in the mid lane. And I didn't watch the EU games as much as I'd like to, but was I wrong, or did Yemen play a Hunter this weekend?
Oh, let me check real quick. They only played one set, so it should be easy to check. He did not play a Hunter. He played Nuwa twice and Discordia once. But they did play Cupid.
There you go.
Emilito played Cupid.
There you go. Well, hey, that's just another point we want to be making, is just the variety of cards we saw this weekend. No pun intended. I'm not talking about the variety from Dignitas.
I should probably say as well, he went 0, 6, and 4 on that Cupid.
Okay. Well, still a lot of variety coming out this weekend, because we got to see Chalk mid. Thank you, Big Man Teams. Why you no play Zhang-Kui? Why you no play Zhang-Kui? Come on, Kappa.
He should. He really should.
Play Zhang-Kui. Don't play Chalk mid. F-Dot was happy, but nobody else was. And then shout outs to Cherio with the Giannis jungle. got to see Baskin. We got to see Baskin play Kamazots in the mid lane. We got to see Arachne and Bakasura this weekend as well.
I mean, I would also mention the Morrigan support by Dardas.
Yeah, and Robin support by Dardas.
But it's Dardas.
Yeah, Robin support by Dardas. I want to see, and people might call me crazy because I've tried to play it in Conquest a couple times already this weekend. I want to see Giannis support.
That sounds terrible.
But it could actually work if you think about it.
Wow.
Cooldown, building cooldown and some defenses on him and porting everybody across the map every 45 to 60 seconds. Like a lot of rotation ability from Giannis supports.
Yeah, but you could just run him in the jungle instead, have him build damage, and do the same thing because he's always going to be mobile around the map, more so than a support even. Which is why Cherio is a mastermind, man.
Let's agree to disagree. We'll move on past this subject. But yeah, the crazy, the crazy amount of gods we got to see this weekend. I believe somebody on Reddit posted the statistics, and he said 70% of the gods in the game were played in the SPL this week.
Oh yeah, I see it. 66 out of 93 gods.
That's actually pretty cool. And did he say 93? Was he counting Achilles? Because I think Achilles makes 94.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But yeah, okay, so it's not played, it's picked or banned. Right? So we didn't see Artemis, right? But she was apparently it's listed there as not picked. But there's a couple of gods we didn't see, but that were banned a whole lot.
We didn't see Aphrodite, but Aphrodite, I believe, was banned.
No, she's on the list of not picked, not banned.
Oh, okay. And we didn't see Chang'e. We didn't see a lot of the healers this weekend. We only got to see only the three, and Hell was only played once. So,
yeah.
Anubis, I know, wasn't picked or banned or any of that. Anubis wasn't picked. So, and Anubis was thought of at the beginning of Season 5 as a very powerful mid laner because of the Typhon Fang. And with Typhon Fang being in the game, Anubis was supposed to be very powerful, and a lot of people were playing him early in Season 5, and now we didn't see him this week. And so, yeah, we still got to see Chalk mid, though, so there's a thing. You know you're in a bad spot. You know you're in a bad spot when a lane that is dedicated or traditionally dedicated to your role is being played by a warrior instead of you.
Well, you also have you have to be fair though. You have Tings playing the role, and Tings. If you go between mages and guardians, right? So between what you're supposed to play and what you have played as Tings, somewhere in the middle are warriors. So it makes perfect sense to pick Chalk.
But what makes no sense is to put Chalk in the mid lane when you did not pick Giannis Jungle that game. Giannis Jungle was a game 1.
No,
Chalk mid was game 2. Like they didn't have a mage in game 2.
They did. They had Dardas on the Morrigan.
A support Morrigan, yeah. that's a mage. That's a powerful mage. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, she's not building power. She's building Talaria boots and defense and cooldown.
Huh? Hey, that's just how you do it sometimes, I guess. And I think that draft is... See, that draft makes a lot of sense when you don't look at the roles, right? They had 2 guardians, a warrior, a mage, and a hunter. That's a standard Elevate / Mouse Sports draft. Except the roles are messed up even more so than usually. Because you had the guardian in solo and jungle, you had the warrior in mid, and you had the mage as support. Yeah, the draft isn't too crazy. It was the roles that made it a Mouse Sports draft. Yeah. And see, the thing is, though, the one guy who played a god that is supposed to be played in that role, Jermaine on the Uller, he went 0-7-0. Yeah.
That's another thing.
So apparently it's working better for everyone else. So Jermaine maybe should also just pick what could he pick? Just pick an assassin. Just go Kali, ADC.
Don't put it past Cyclone. Cyclone Spin will play Kali. And I imagine somebody's going to pull out the Paul ADC, Paul from the console league. Likes to play Hell ADC. So, hey, imagine that's going to be a thing we're going to be seeing pretty soon.
This season is
Maybe
weird.
from Jermaine.
The season's weird, but it's entertaining.
I'm calling it now. I'm saying this right now. I will quit watching the Pro League if Ataraxia tries to play Giannis ADC.
Oh, he totally should.
I will quit if he tries it. Because I remember the last time we saw Ataraxia on Giannis.
But can you imagine if he brought it out and carried with it?
I don't want to. I really don't want to. You know, with so much creativity going on in the Pro League right now, what we're going to eventually end up seeing from adapting, right?
No, what do you expect?
He's going to pull out the Ho Yi jungle.
Oh, that would be fun. I'd pay to see that.
It's adapting. Most of the times when he gets into those troll games, like at the end of a split where the games don't matter as much because everything's already been decided, or even at lands where you're getting towards the end of the land and everything's been decided and it's just for fun. He likes to pull out the hunters in the jungle. And what's the best hunter in the jungle, in my opinion?
Uller.
What's the one hunter you don't want to fight in a jungle corridor?
Uller.
No, the corridors, the tight walls of the mat. This Ho Yi being able to triple bounce you.
No, you have to consider this, right? He's gonna hide around the corner. You're gonna walk past and just get an axe into your face, and then you're getting Uller comboed. And because it's adapting, he's also doing perfect AA canceling. So you also, in addition to the full Uller combo, eat like 5 auto attacks, and then you're just dead.
Yeah, and then you're gonna put him on Ho Yi, and he's gonna be roaming around the jungle and jump into 5 people and hit 5 people with a triple bounce and kill 4 of them.
Yeah. I mean, I agree, but Uller is still better because Uller's the more traditional jungle hunter. You have to consider that.
I still think you don't want to be running into a Ho Yi in the jungle.
Oh, you know what you
on
could
any
do?
map.
Okay, so what you could do, right? You go back to Season 1 and you bring out the Freya jungle.
No, don't give him any ideas.
Oh, he should totally
I've had
do
enough of that. I've had enough of that in my ranked and casual games. I don't want to see it in my Pro League games.
Yeah. But yeah.
But yeah, so what's the one thing that excited you the most about Week 1?
Just beforehand or in the aftermath?
In the aftermath, like coming, looking forward to, the future of the split and the future of Season 5. What's the one thing we saw this week that most excites you?
Honestly, it's gotta be Rival looking good online. That's the thing that excites me most. Because I want to see how far it can extend, right? Whether they can actually be the #1 EU team online. And because it's a bunch of fun to watch Wolfie play with Ra and just hit a million Ra snipes on everyone.
Yeah, better him on Raw than on Poseidon, right?
Definitely, yeah.
And I think the one thing that excites me the most, and it kind of lines up with you, but it's a single player and not a team. Scary D. Like we said, like we talked about just a couple of minutes ago. keep this performance, the performance you had yesterday, and how crazy it was, and how crazy well you played. Keep it going. Don't just let it die out after 1 week or 2 weeks, like you did in season 4. Keep it going throughout the entire season. If you keep playing like that for the entire season, you're going to be considered one of the best solo laners in the world.
Yeah. There's no question about that. And yeah, I think in NA, you have a lot of players anyway that are exciting to look towards how they're going to be doing moving forward, right? You had Andy in one of the most dominant games ever. And if he can keep that type of form, then it's also going to be really exciting to watch that roster play, the SSG roster. And yeah.
I think it's also going to be interesting to see is when Cloud/Vedium gets back with this LG roster after how Oceans performed this week against the champs.
Yeah. I mean, he is supposed to be their main shot caller, but he wasn't playing, so the shot calling kind of worked without him as well. So maybe...
Yeah, if you're a subscriber to F. on YouTube and you watch some of his roster breakdowns for going into season 5, LG was one of the last rosters he did because LG was the last roster to announce.
Yeah.
And he spoke very, very highly of Vetium or Cloud or whatever you want to call him because he changes his name and the pronunciation of his name. So, he spoke very highly of the guy.
Yeah.
Spoke very highly of the amount of talent he actually has. He actually went as far as saying he's one of the best hunters in the game. But it's been his attitude that has been the problem in the past, and his willingness to play, a lot like Benji. And you remember Benji and Vetium were teammates for the longest time.
That team attitude must have been terrible.
Yeah, that's exactly. Benji's attitude improved, and he became a world champion because of it. Vetium, if F. speaks so highly of Vetium, and Vetium can correct his attitude to where he actually gives a damn about playing the game, and he should because he's getting paid $30,000 a year. This LG could be an underrated team for the most of the season, and they could surprise some people because if Vetium's that good and Oceans is your substitute / coach, LG could be looking at a very decent spring split going forward as well. So
yeah, which would be exciting, right? I'm not sure if Vetium has it in him as much as Benji did, right? It's not a guarantee that everyone who has motivational issues is going to turn into Benji when he overcomes them, right?
But
there's potential there.
Consider the fact F. called him one of the best hunters in the league. And not just one of the best hunters in North America, but one of the best hunters in the league when he tries to be. Means F. probably puts him higher than Zapman and Barracuda. Probably puts him higher than Snoopy.
Yeah, also probably
F. probably puts him higher than Ataraxia and some of the EU hunters because he called him one of the best in the league, not just one of the best in North America, one of the best in the league. If he has that kind of talent, show us. Give us something that proves to us that you're one of the best in the world.
Yeah, I want to see that as well, right? If he is one of the best in the world, then I want to see him play like it because that's going to be amazing to watch, obviously. I just don't think it will happen. If that makes any sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense because if his attitude's what's holding him back, attitude, you just can't change your attitude overnight. You got to work on it. And
yeah, but I don't even think, right? It doesn't even need to be the attitude for me that's going to be the issue from holding him back. I just think that maybe F. and others might be overrating him a bit. Right? Because there are a lot of good hunters.
Well, let's table this conversation till later when we actually get to see Vedium play
Yes.
and see if he actually lives up to the hype F Dot is giving him.
Yes.
So let's shift gears and say, what's the most disappointing thing you saw this week?
Well, it's gotta be United, right? There's almost no question about it. You don't expect the world champions to go into a split as 0-2 and 0-4 in games. Especially not if one of the teams they're facing is supposed to be the bottom team in the league.
Yeah. Again, I want to give them a pass for this week because it is only week 1 and they got the entire split and then the entire season after that to actually get up to where we know that they can be, and that's a world championship level. But you're right, it's probably the most disappointing result what we have right now is that E United just didn't give up or get up and play the way that we all know they should have been capable of playing. And so that would probably be the most disappointing thing for me as well this weekend. And it's just put Benji on a god that he can put massive amounts of pressure on, and Panda Cat has to step up. He has to play like he did, and not like he did this week, but play like he did during the fall split, where he was one of the hard carries for the team. Again, Venenu and Scream played well this week. Played very well this week. It was Benji not having pressure and Panda Cat struggling this week that caused E United to start 0-2.
Yeah.
All right.
Outside of it, right? The other disappointment is obviously Obey also going 0-2, right? Even though it was against two good teams, like we said already, you can expect an 0-2, but it's still not a good sign. And considering how the individual games went, it's also not a good sign, right? Because they were never really in the set against rival at all, and against Stake they also only looked good in one game.
That's why I'm going to give Obey a pass this week, because of who they were playing against. Who I'm not going to give a pass as far as EU goes is going to be SK Gaming, because they were supposed, we expected them to be better than Mouse Sports, and they just did not play like it. And it was mainly because Mouse Sports big man teams played better than we thought he would.
Yeah.
But again, Lobster, we criticized him so much at the end of season 4. We wanted to see a better Lobster in season 5, and so far through one set against Mouse, it does not look like the team has gotten any better than what they finished last season at.
Yeah, they kind of threw that game away, the third game between them and Mouse Sports, right? They lost a fight at FG, then they just gave up everything and just decided to defend the base instead of actually trying to fight into Mouse anymore around FG, despite them still having a bit of a lead at first, right? And that's kind of how their lead went away. And then in that last defense they had, I think Lobster was killed in part because there was a visual bug in the game. I haven't actually watched the video he posted of it, but he got picked off in mid, and he was a big part of the defense, right? Because Discordia can do massive amounts of damage with that apple, and with the 2 especially, and with the 1 just flying around everywhere. And him not being there anymore just made it fairly easy for Mouse to actually end the game against the rest of the roster that was still alive. And yeah, Lob kind of lost him the game in that regard, because it's not entirely his fault because of the bug, right? It's not fair to entirely put it on him, that loss, and you have to see that Funball didn't have a good second game either. And yeah, I'm not sure if it's that bad, right, for the roster so far, because they had a very dominant game 2 as well. That's something you can give them. You had game 1 being very dominant from Mouse, game 2 being very dominant from SK, and them basically throwing away the lead in game 3, which they could have very easily won as well if they had actually like done something to try and fight into it. But yeah, they were expected to win. They didn't win. That's kind of a disappointment, but I don't think it's a massive run, right? I don't think anyone went into this set expecting a 2-0 for the SK guys, right? It was always going to be a close set, and just Mouse managed to win it.
I think we still expected better from them. I think we expected a better ending to Game 3 and how that entire scenario played out. I would have expected a better ending from them. That's also interesting that you bring up that point about the glitch in the game, where a lot of the times we saw this weekend when teams had Fire Giant and they were performing these Phoenix Sieges, the defense on those Phoenix Sieges, and a lot of this has to do with how the map plays out and how open the bases are now, where the defenses are easier to mount. I think it's going to be interesting going forward, how teams adjust to these Phoenix Sieges and how what kind of strategies come out for sieging and not actually defending the Phoenixes. Because right now, defending the Phoenixes, the team on defense has the upper hand. So strategies are going to have to be made to better perform these Phoenixes, because that's what cost E United in 2 games this weekend, in both game ones of the set, through on a Phoenix Siege to LG in that game 1, where LG was able to turn it around and then pick up the win themselves, and then just couldn't break the base of Space Station for like 20 minutes. And so the Phoenix Sieges seem to be an important role in the game right now. So going forward ahead, we're going to have to see what adjustments are made.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I'm just saying, right? I think SK can still turn themselves into a better team. Mouse got off to a better start, obviously, because Tings and Nika as well looked good in their individual roles, more so than Batcha kind of did, right? Batcha had a good games 2 and 3, but nothing sort of extraordinary.
Yeah, you got to say that knocking off the rust. Haven't had played in a year, you have to say that was maybe knocking off a little bit of the rust.
Yeah, and so I think this team can still turn into a better team than Mouse. Right? So that's all I really have to say about the topic, right? Again, it's week 1, you can't read too much into it.
Again, yes, week 1 you can't read too much into it. But if creativity seems to be the meta right now, if creativity is the meta going forward, which I don't think it will be, I think as we go further along, teams start to figure out what does and does not work. I think we start seeing more of a more defined meta. But if creativity runs the show right now, you got to figure that SK and Splice are 2 teams that are going to benefit from it, because they are I would consider them probably the 2 most creative teams in each region right now.
Yeah, you can definitely make that point, right? Especially, I would have put Mouse on that list as well, but
I said
they
SK,
were
didn't
disappointing at Worlds.
I said SK, didn't I? I meant Mouse.
Oh, yeah.
My
See,
mistake.
then
Mouse and Splice.
See, then I think we saw at Worlds that they can still fall flat, right? They can still fail to think up anything creative.
I'm saying in week 1 of season 5, if creativity, it seems to be the meta that we're going to have, the 2 most creative teams are Mouse and Splice because of their rosters. And it would benefit them to keep this wide open meta, this wide open creative meta, instead of a more defined meta.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. And again, I just want to mention, Mouse were expected to bring out new stuff at Worlds. They failed to do it. So they can have sort of creative, is it a drought?
A creative drought, but then we get to see Chalk mid and Giannis jungle from them. So
yeah, that's a fair point. Right?
I I think it's still in there. I think they're still capable of it.
Yeah, right. The question is whether they're gonna have enough of those weird picks they can bring out that it's gonna be impossible to prepare for all of them, and whether they're gonna keep finding new ones. Because they didn't between Worlds, they did between Worlds and the start of Season 5, so looking forward to what they're gonna bring out, obviously. And yeah, just give us the Shang mid, finally. The least creative pick, actually, for them.
Young mid, yeah. There's a flip of the coin there.
So yeah, if we have a bit more time, then I want to go into 2 more topics that might be a bit controversial. So, we talked about Mixer last week a tiny bit as well, right?
Yeah.
And this week we had some issues with the platform. Both of us were kind of experiencing them from a different perspective. And you did not watch the games from Tuesday on a PC, right? You watched them on mobile. Is that right?
Yeah, I tried to watch them on mobile. Let me clear something up in saying that the recordings after the fact, having to watch the recordings on Mixer, that's not, there was no issue with the recordings. It was the live, trying to watch them on live that was really terrible on a mobile device.
Yeah. And that's part of the criticism that Mixer's getting right now is the mobile app is just bad right now. And they've admitted that. They said they're going to be working on it, so that's not too big of an issue. The other thing that was for everyone who watched on PC on a Tuesday was that in the first set there were massive issues with the stream itself, right? And that's what the crazy thing was.
But how much of that can you blame on Mixer and how much of that can you blame on Hi-Res? Because that was an issue on Twitch as well. And so the platform has something to do with it, but you got to put some of that on Hi-Res as well.
Yeah, it's a combination of both, right? Hi-Res for the first time did that quad stream thingy where they had 4 different streams, which was it's an amazing idea, right? I'm glad that we're keeping at least 3 streams right now. But on Tuesday they had 4 streams: the main stream, then the caster cam, so you could watch if you wanted to, you could have just watched the casters during the entire match that was going on, and between the matches as well, where they were eating salad and stuff. And you had the player POVs, right, from the 2 players that were selected, and you had them all on the same screen running at the same time, right? And it seemed like that is something that either Mixer or Hi-Res or just a combination of both was struggling with at that point in time, because the main stream was just choppy as hell and wasn't running well for a lot of people.
I will say this: it's a good idea, but you have to have the equipment to perform it.
Yeah,
you have to have equipment capable of performing that kind of feat. It's a good idea. Again, I like the idea. Maybe not the best idea until you upgrade your equipment.
Yeah, now they've removed the caster cam because it was kind of pointless, even though it was funny.
And kind of awkward.
Yeah, awkward and pointless and funny. But it was brilliant, man. I mean, watching Tolly just eat salad in between matches. Just think about it. It was amazing. But yeah, they did remove that. And the other cams are now on separate streams, kinda. So it's really right the kind of feature you had where you had all the streams on one monitor. It's kind of gone now. And then you can ask yourself the question: what is the difference between just hosting 3 separate streams on Twitch?
Yeah.
And that is kind of the silly thing, right?
That ship has sailed, at least for this year. They have the agreement with Mixer for going forward. So.
Yeah, Yeah.
At least for this year, we're stuck on Mixer, and hopefully they get some of their issues worked out. I want to see a mobile app update to where it's actually working on mobile, and then make the playback VODs more user friendly because they are very difficult to navigate.
Yeah, that is a big criticism I have for them as well. Is if you're gonna be a WAD based platform as well, right? Where one of the features you have and that you're actually trying to focus on is having the WADs available. You absolutely have to have a search function first of all, and you have to have them organized a bit better in general, and you have to have them a bit more in front overall as well, right? Because right now they're kind of hidden away in a small box in the bottom left. And if they bought the rights for the Smite, for the SPL VODs, then they should have made them bigger because those are worth something. And right now, I don't think they're getting their money's worth by putting them in that tiny box in a corner.
Yeah, just make the playback features and stuff, make them more user friendly because it's very difficult to navigate. You got the stuff in the left hand corner, the bottom left corner, the adjusting times to where if you stop watching a VOD to go do something and you're thinking you're coming back to it later, getting it to the perfect time to where you're at, or at least relevant to where I don't know how many times I watched Tuesday games on the VOD, Wednesday morning to get a look at the game and how it worked. And it's very difficult to navigate the right times to where I'm not missing picks and bans, but I'm also not skipping forward after the end of a game to 20 minutes into the next game. It's just not very user friendly right now, and I hope that they fix that.
Yeah, definitely do as well. And another issue I've heard from the VODs are from people with bad internet connections, right? And we're talking about legitimately internet connections that are so bad you cannot watch a full HD stream, and you cannot watch videos in full HD without having to preload them. Because that's an issue they had as well, is the VODs that Mixer saves are 1080p at 60 frames per second. And for a lot of people, or for some people at least, those are not watchable unless they preload them.
Yeah, that's an issue too. They need to be able to adjust the quality of those VODs. That's not good at all.
See, one thing I wonder though is, I'm not entirely sure if you want to have different qualities, if the easiest way to do it is to actually just buy more storage, render them in the different quality formats that you have, and have them on there. And the issue with that would then be that you're just wasting a massive amount of storage for VODs that are only going to be watched in that low quality by very few people, right? So from that perspective, I could understand Mixer.
Get better internet, people.
Yeah. See, it's not like
get better internet.
It's not like ISPs have monopolies basically fucking everywhere, especially in the US, right?
Yeah, basically.
So yeah.
Let's not talk about ISPs right now, with my ISP being not a simple storm, like a simple rainy day shuts down my internet. Let's not talk about ISPs right now.
That's the bane of living in a rural area, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know that as well, right?
I have AT&T. I have AT&T internet. Probably the worst internet out there, but that's the only one available in my area, so I gotta fucking go with it.
I mean,
and usually I don't have an issue with it. It's only because of course we had some really bad weather at the beginning of March, at the end of February, and that really crapped my internet out. And this could just possibly be an after effect of that, where it's raining and the ground's still a little wet, so it's not like it's sending out a good internet signal. So yeah, it could just be where the it's still being affected by the floods that we had. But yeah. So
And yeah, outside of that, I think Mixer. So between after the first day, they had no more big issues really, at least not on my end. If you're watching on PC, right?
Yeah.
The mobile app wasn't fixed in a day, unsurprisingly.
not on the PC. The mobile app. Don't watch the live content on mobile app. Watch the VODs on mobile app. They're a lot more accessible. The live content's just it's terrible. So just if you're gonna watch it live, watch it on PC. You can watch the VODs on your mobile device if you need to.
Yeah.
Because most mobile devices nowadays have 1080p. You know, that's their base. 1080p is their base format. And so watching the VODs on your cell phone, you know, as long as you have good internet, you know, you're going to have the highest quality that you can get them on.
Yeah, and that it works, right? That's all it really has to. And yeah, so second day, as I said, the issues were largely gone, and it's looking better. It's looking like it's going to be a good streaming service. Views have been pretty good, right? I think the streams are basically consistently over 10K, which is good by Smite standards.
Yeah.
And yeah, the novelty's just kind of gone now that you don't no longer have several streams on the same page just visible. But if it's still a good streaming performance, right, it doesn't really matter. It just has to be better than Twitch, really. And right now, it's at least comparable to it. So
yeah,
outside
again,
of mobile,
with the exception of the mobile application, yeah, it's comparable to Twitch.
So yeah, I'm pretty happy with Mixer so far, and Mixer chat is cool, like honestly. And the chest giveaways have been amazing.
I didn't pay attention to Twitch chat. I'm not paying attention to Mixer chat.
So far it's been fun.
I own most of the stuff in the game already, so I don't care about chest.
Hey, you can get like thousands of FP. Seriously, just from the blue and white Mixer chat chests.
That's what's messed up though. Like, okay, I have the E United season 5 tag. You know the badge. Yeah, and I'm not getting any FP towards my E United stuff from all those things. I don't understand why. Maybe that's not a thing, but FP, it's you level your badge by FP, and I'm not getting any FP from anything but playing the game.
Yeah, but also I just want to give a shout out to Hyres Ovi. Is that how it's pronounced? I'm not sure. Right, there was one Hyres guy in chat, the guy who's giving out the chest codes, or I think it's a girl, actually, woman, actually.
I want to give a shout out. I want to give a shout out to DM Brandon.
Oh, for the Las Vegas casting?
Yeah, I don't know if you watched the show match.
Nope. Because it was at like 4 a.m.
Okay. You can go watch the VOD of it on Twitch.
Yeah.
And, Kelly did the desk, the picks and bans, and Hindu Man and Brandon took over the cast. And I want to give a shout out to DM Brandon. I didn't realize that I missed hearing his voice that much, because he and Hindu Man still have a good back and forth, and it's it's over now, all right? Like that incident is in the past. People have forgot about it. I'm willing to look over it or overlook it. He would be a great addition to the casting team again. And obviously, he still loves to cast Smite.
Yeah.
Bring him back. It's time. I'm ready for it. Bring him back.
I don't think he even wants to come back, to be honest. Right? But a lot of people have said that he didn't enjoy it as much if he's doing it regularly, right? And a lot of people have said that he hated having to live in Georgia and in Atlanta. So I don't think he's going to be coming back. I think this type of one-off stuff can work. I think even bringing him for LANs potentially could work, right? If he would be willing to do that. And
If,
yeah,
if they're not going to bring him back full time, make him a Hughesy guy,
yeah, or just
or
make
a
him
Hugsy.
invite him to the fun stuff, right? If you have an invitational tournament or
Yeah,
stuff like the spring fling, you can invite him to, and
bring him,
it will be
for the
great.
lands, bring him for the fun stuff.
Yeah,
Have him come in and make an appearance at the spring fling. Have him do the lands where all he has to do is get a hotel room. He doesn't have to buy a house in Atlanta.
yeah, and
Bring him in for special events and let's have some fun because he's obviously still likes to cast Smite. He's got a great repertoire with Hindu Man, but like a lot of people do. So, and I think putting him and aggro on a cast together would actually be fun to hear as well.
yeah,
So
yeah. I could see that doing working well as well. And yeah, I just want to say about the incident as well, right? It was bad, right? Let's not say that it wasn't a bad thing. He did say something that he regrets saying as well,
it,
from what I've
it was
heard.
pretty bad, but it was 2 years ago. Like we got to move on now. Like
Yeah.
it's over with.
And see, I don't even care if he is a dick in person and it's probably not even in person, it's just on stream sometimes. I don't even care about that if he's a good caster. And even when he was kicked for that incident initially, or when he left, right, technically, but realistically he was made to leave, probably. Even back then, there was no denying that he was a good caster.
There was no probably about it. He was made to leave.
Yeah. Not sure why I said
That's-
probably.
There's no probably about it. He messed up, and he got fired for it.
Yeah.
But that incident is over with, and he's a good caster. It's in the past. It's time to forgive him. Time to move on.
Yeah, and what I was gonna say just is, I personally do not care how you do, what you are in real life, right, or what you are on your personal stream, as long as you do the stuff that Brandon did on stream, because he always added a lot of things to casting. He was always a good caster. If he came back, then it would still be beneficial for Smite, regardless of all the controversy that he produces, right?
Yeah, and you're on a new platform. Like, you're on Mixer now. You're no longer on Twitch. So, the platform that issue took place on, you're no longer using. You're using Mixer now. So, a change of platform, a change of scenery. Maybe it's a time for a change in the casting team and bringing DM back. I would welcome him back.
Yeah.
I'm like you. I don't care what you are in your personal life. I don't care what you do. Make the cast entertaining, and as long as you do that, I'll be happy with you.
Yeah. So another thing I want to talk about real quick is our potential scheduling issues that I see coming up with how the schedule is currently laid out. So, like now, Sabo, North America or the US has switched to daylight saving times last weekend. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so this week Europe was still on the opposite of it, not on daylight saving time. It's basically the main point, which means we were 1 hour closer than we are going to be from next week onward. Which means basically all games in the SPL are going to be starting 1 hour later for us in Europe. So obviously, we're going to be fucked for the Wednesdays anyway. Friday's not an issue because it's the weekend, start of the weekend, right?
Yeah, Friday
issue
is
is
by Saturday.
yeah. The issue is the first day, because first day is an EU day. It has 3 sets on it, and it's going to be starting Central European summertime at 7 p.m. So
You're
yeah,
just gonna have to watch the VODs. I mean, you're gonna have to watch the VODs on Friday afternoon before the North American game starts.
yeah. The thing was, this first day, right? Like we already talked about, we had 3 2-0s, and it still went to. I'm sure it went pretty close to midnight still. So if you have the worst case scenario where you have close games, all sets going 2-1, and you're starting an hour later, you can be looking at a finish time of like 3 a.m. potentially, which would be madness.
You just gonna have to watch the VODs. I mean, that's what I did with Wednesday's games. I had to watch the final 2 games of Splice versus CLG Friday afternoon before the Friday games started. I mean, that's
Yeah.
we both have jobs now. We both can't watch the games live. We just got to make adjustments. I mean, yes, it's kind of annoying that we have to do that, and shame on Hi-Rez for putting us through that. But we're two people out of what 10,000 who watched the SPL this week. So
yeah, no. See, the thing that I think is an issue is that you have 3 games on first day that are EU, and you're starting at 7, because that's just a bit silly unless you always manage to make the last game just a completely terrible one. But this time around, that wasn't the case, right? You had Dignitas against Obey as the last set. Next week, what are you going to have next week? Let me check real quick. We're going to have Energy against SK, so that's not too good of a match.
If you're going to start the games earlier, I mean, I can't remember what time the game started for me on Thursday. I know Wednesday game started at noon for me. So if you don't have the games any earlier, you got to make it like you got to push it up 2 hours. You can't push it any more than 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what I would advocate for, right? Is pushing the starting date on first days up by 2 hours. Most people are gonna miss some of the first set, right? Because generally you work until 5 p.m. obviously. Then you get home, then you can start watching.
That's the thing. The Friday games start at 4 o'clock my time.
Yeah.
Yeah, Friday's my day off, but if Friday wasn't my day off, and I was working until 6 o'clock, I would miss the first set as well.
Yeah.
So that's an issue we just gotta have to put up with for now. I mean, that's the price of making money. At least I get to go to Worlds this year.
Yeah.
I'm saving up money to go to Worlds. That's my goal. I want to go to Worlds this year.
See, all I'm trying to say is Hi-Rez could cater the times for the EU SPL matches on first day a bit more towards the EU audience. Because NA's getting fucked anyway, because they're starting at 1 p.m. for NA, right? Or not 1 p.m., but probably even later, earlier, I mean.
Yeah. I would, cater to the EU audience, start a little bit earlier, but
yeah, if you could do that, then the issue would kind of solve itself, right?
If the games start at 5 o'clock in Atlanta on Friday, then have the game start at 5 o'clock in London on Thursday. So everybody knows, so everything's lined up the right way.
Yeah, that would make sense, right? But then again, looking through the games that are happening on first days, the last sets of that day, they've kind of taken all of the sets that aren't too exciting, right? If we go through the list, obviously this one was exciting. That's the exception to it. But then we're gonna have Energy against SK, not too exciting. We're gonna have Rival against Mousesports, and then we're gonna have the previous ones repeat themselves. So Energy against SK and Rival against Mousesports, those aren't barn burner sets, so it's not that much of an issue to have them on these days. Anyway, but yeah, if you can move it forward by 2 hours, Hi-Rez, then you should do it, because don't screw EU out of EU games.
Let's start a petition.
Oh, please no, they never work anyway. So yeah, is there anything else to talk about? We kind of touched on all the rest of the points on our bullet point list already, to a certain degree. What do you want to talk about, Sabo?
I think that pretty much wraps it up quick. Let's just do a quick MVP thing without much discussion. Week 1 MVP for Europe and North America. Who you got?
Oh, fuck. I was totally unprepared.
On the spot. Let's go. You better yet, since I can't watch all the EU games and you can't watch all the NA games, you do the Week 1 EU MVP and I'll do the Week 1 NA MVP.
Okay. Give me 5 seconds. I'm just gonna give it to Wolfie. Wolfie.
All right. Wolfie it is. And for the North America, I don't think there's any argument from a lot of people, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to Annister's return to the jungle. What a hell of a week he had. So, Annister and Wolfie. Congratulations.
Yay. And yeah, something we quickly want to say. Open the site right now, this is my esports site, and look at the sets happening next week. And tell me which ones do you think are the most exciting? Which ones are you looking more forward to the most? I can start if you don't have it open yet.
You go ahead and start.
So, most exciting sets on the EU side probably are going to be the two matches we were actually talking about, the two pairings we were actually talking about. Rival against Dignitas on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 7 p.m. Central European Summer Time. And on Thursday, the first set is going to be the second set is going to be Energy Esports against Obey Alliance on 2:45 p.m. Eastern Time, which should be 9:45 p.m. Central European Time, 8:25 p.m. Central European Time. Yeah.
That's late. I'll tell you that's late. We went to midnight last night for North America. It was I believe it was 10:45 my time, which would have been 11:45 in Atlanta. So yeah. So we went to midnight last night. But the NA matchups I'm watching for week 2, we've already kind of talked about one of them, Space Station versus Counter Logic Gaming. I believe that's on Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's going to be a good set as far as deciding who's going to be on top of North America, at least for the future or for the time being. And then I believe it's a Friday game, and correct me if I'm wrong because I can't. I'm pulling this from memory right now because my internet's down. But I believe E United plays Trifecta on Friday.
No, that's also on Wednesday.
It's also on Wednesday. So, yeah, both of my sets to watch this week are on Wednesday because I want to see E United bounce back, but I also want to see Scary D, and if Scary D can actually make his yesterday's performance a thing and not just a one-time done, over with kind of thing. So.
That's a good day, right? That's a big day in terms of the matchups you get to see Wednesday. United against Trifecta, Space Station against CLG. That's basically the top 4 of NA all facing each other. Or Splice also kind of in contention, and Luminosity now also kind of in contention for top 4, I guess. But yeah, interesting day. Definitely. So yeah,
it's gonna be an interesting day, and I get to watch 4 sets on Friday because I'll only be able to watch one set on Wednesday.
Well, it's just how it goes sometimes.
I started watching Smite yesterday at 11 o'clock. I watched the Counter Logic Gaming versus Splice set from 11 till 2, and then at 4 started watching the Friday games.
I'm gonna have to start watching the games from Wednesday on Friday before I start watching the NASPL, the rest of the NASPL, because Wednesday I'm not gonna be able to watch, man. And if Thursday goes late, I'm also going to have to watch the Thursday games then. And all those that I can't fit in, I'm going to have to watch on Saturday. It's a lot of stuff to watch.
Yeah, I've pretty much decided myself, and maybe we should stop the recording before we talk any further about this. So, yeah. We'll get back to this. Okay, let's wrap this up and let's get on our way.
Yeah, that was it from the Divinity podcast for this week. If you have anything to say, leave us a comment. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a like on whatever platform you're watching it on. You can also subscribe to our channel or follow our channel depending on where you are watching to be notified when new episodes come out. You can also follow our Twitter account where we always tweet out when the episodes go live. And we should do predictions again, by the way, because we kind of forgot those last week, which should also be on the Twitter in that case. And yeah, thank you all for watching. Thanks, Sabo, for being here with me today. And with all that said, good night.
Phone.
What?
Half of it was on my phone.
Yeah. Anyway, good night. Good smite.